everyone, my name is Liz I Read, and welcome to another video. And today I'm reviewing the book A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is a first for me. I haven't read this series before, and I really enjoy myself. So this is book one in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, or ACOTAR as some people call it. This is Sarah J. Maas's second series that she's ever written. It's kind of a bridge between young adult and adult. It's a romance fantasy, and we follow Fairy, or Farah, I should say. And it's a fantasy world, brand new fantasy world. Her father lost a fortune. They were wealthy at one point, and after her mother died, they slowly dwindled, lost all their money. He made some bad investments, and so ever since she was a young girl, they've been living in poverty. And it got to the point where she realized she had to start providing for her family at a young age, so she started hunting. So she's a huntress. When the story begins, she's 19, I think, and it's her two sisters, and her father. And her father kind of just gave up. He doesn't even try. One day it's winter, and she's out in the forest, and she stumbles upon a wolf, this massive wolf, and she's wondering in her mind, I wonder if it's fairy. Either way, she ends up killing it. And it ended up being a fairy, and in retaliation, a fairy from the fairy world takes her to his home as payment, life for life kind of thing. And the story goes from there. So it's there is a wall that divides the fairy world from the human world, and her family live kind of it's an island, this world. And the human side of this island is just the southernmost tip of the island. And then there's this fairy wall that divides the human world from the fairy world. I had an amazing time reading this. I've heard amazing things. I've heard not so great things. I knew going in that I probably would fall in love with it. I do like Sarah J. Maas's writing. I enjoyed her writing in Throne of Glass series. I never ended up finishing that series because I did have problems with it, but it was more choices made about characters and the direction that the story was going. But I never had a problem with her writing specifically, and I had a feeling that I was going to love this series, and I really did. It helps that it's a more fairy story. Throne of Glass, there are fairies, but here it's solely about fairies. This is also, I should mention, a Beauty and Beast retelling. I've heard complaints that it's not a true adaptation, and I would agree, but I'm totally fine with that. I liked how Sarah J. Maas made it her own, that she did follow specific beats. She mostly followed the beats of the Beauty and the Beast story, and then made it her own. I want to point out that my discussion here is based on the feelings I had while I was reading this, because when you move on to book two, your feelings for characters and events make you change the way you think about book one. But I loved everyone. I loved every character. I did really enjoy the romance when I was reading it. And I did like how she did hit all the beats of the Beauty and Beast retelling, because I didn't anticipate that happening. I just thought it was just going to be him taking her into the fairy world, and that was the extent of the adaptation. But no, she hits all the major beats that you need to hit. There's no really representation of every character in Beauty and the Beast, but it's when it comes to the specific beats in Beauty and the Beast, it does happen in here. I liked the love interest. I really did, to be honest. And I liked Farah. I felt Sarah J. Maas did a good job of maturing her. I feel like she's mature. I think some people don't feel that way, but I feel like she is, because the fact that she has to take care of her family and make hard choices at a young age matures her, which is important to me because these fairies are ancient. They're hundreds of years old, and that's always been a problem for me when it comes to YA, when our characters are younger, like 16, and falling in love with like 100-year-old fairies. It's not my favorite, but the fact that she's 19, so she is an adult, plus she is more mature for her age than other 19-year-olds, I think makes the relationship work. I should also mention, I forgot, Tamlin, who's our love interest, he does have a mask, so he is hidden, kind of like in Beauty and the Beast. And I traditionally like the rags to riches trope, which does happen in here, because Farah, who was living in squalor, gets to live in a beautiful mansion, Tamlin's mansion, and I don't know, I like that trope. It's just fun. I liked how the relationship was slow burn. I thought it took its time, and I think it was necessary in order for it to work, because we're supposed to believe that Farah hates fairies, and so the relationship between Farah and Tamlin was going to be kind of doomed from the start. But I felt like he gave her enough space in order for her to get over any prejudices that she may have about fairies. And other criticisms I've heard about Farah is that she doesn't listen, she doesn't take advice from people. And I feel like her actions made sense to me, because she was taken away from her family, and even though her family were not really loving all the time, she still cared for them, and she feels responsible for them. She's worried that they can't take care of themselves. So whenever she ran off, or whenever she made a poor choice, it made sense to me, because I would assume she wouldn't want to actually stay. I wasn't sure at first, because there were hints of a love triangle in here near the kind of latter half of the story, and I wasn't sure about it, because I did really enjoy the romance in here. And so I was hesitant at first, but then when things were progressing with the other person, I was all for it. By the end of the book, I was open to anything, so I didn't like have a preference. I was just like, yeah, this seems like a fun way to take the story. I did have some problems. There is some info dumping in here, and it happens near like the end. Someone like explains something to Farah, and it's like pages of it, so I didn't like that. I'm noticing that's a thing with Sarah J. Maas, is that she does info dump every once in a while. At least there's like 1 or 2 info dumps per book, I've noticed. And so I wasn't a fan of that. And then there was a riddle in here, and it felt way too obvious, like based on the themes of the book. And then when the riddle happened, it felt too easy, it felt too simple, and the fact that people can solve it didn't make any sense to me. So, but I had a lot of fun reading this book. I thought it was good. In the end, I'm giving it a 4.5. And today I'm reviewing the book A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I've been reading through this series for the first time, and I've been really enjoying myself. This is book 2 in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and it was great. I really enjoyed myself reading this book. If you have not read A Court of Thorns and Roses, I suggest maybe leaving this video, because there will be spoilers for book 1. So I'm going to start with spoiler free for this book, and then probably move into spoilers halfway through the video. Obviously this takes place after the events of book 1, pretty much right away. Like I would feel like maybe like 1 or 2 months have passed. Farah is back with Tamlin at his estate in the Spring Court. She's dealing with the trauma from what happened under the mountain. So if you don't remember, she went back to save Tamlin from, what's her name? Amarantha. She dealt with severe trauma. She was locked in a prison, and she had to go through all these trials in order to save Tamlin and the rest of Fairy in this world. So she's dealing with that trauma, and she's not dealing with it well, and Tamlin's not dealing with it well. They're having a really toxic relationship, and it's really affecting Farah. She made a deal while under the mountain with Rysand where she has to spend 1 week a month with him. So far, he has not come and claimed her, but eventually he does on her wedding day to Tamlin, and the story goes from there. I'm gonna put it back here. I do want to point out that there is some trigger warnings. I'm going to list the trigger warnings down here, like all the other ones that I can think of. But specifically, I want to point out there's a character in here who is in kind of house arrest, forced to stay in their house and not leave. And I just thought I would point that out because it's early 2021 and we're all facing the pandemic right now, and I just thought I wasn't bothered by it, but I just did notice how close to home it kind of hit. So go into this novel being aware of that. There's also other trigger warnings, but Farah deals with major depression and PTSD in this novel. So I did really enjoy that exploration of that. I don't think I've seen that in a fantasy before, but it makes a lot of sense for all the things she dealt with. And like I said, she's not dealing with the trauma really well, and Tamlin's not really doing anything about it. And she's really struggling with her relationship with Tamlin, and she's unhappy because he's forcing her to stay on this date all the time and not help him with his job as like High Lord. And he's overly protective to the point where it's damaging to Farah. But they are planning to get married, and on her wedding day, like I said, Rysand steps in and claims her because of the deal that they made under the mountain. And so the wedding is canceled because of it, and Farah begins visiting Rysand once a week. I really enjoyed this novel. I liked this a lot more than book one. I really enjoyed book one though, but things change a lot in this novel. Book one reads more like a traditional YA, even though it's more new adult, where this book feels more like an adult fantasy. And I think it's because the author expands on the world, takes her time more with the world, and just has a lot more going on. It is a fantasy romance, so the focus, one main plot point is the romance in here. I want to talk about Tamlin and Rysand for a minute because I noticed how different they were in this book. I feel like they both flipped, and it was very dramatic. I really liked Tamlin in book one. I really liked him as a romance lead, like as a hero. And I enjoyed the slow burn romance that he and Farah had in book one. And then the beginning of this book, he is kind of the villain. He is victimizing Farah and smothering her and not letting her be her own person, where Rysand ends up being kind of the hero and the rescuer. I'm not saying I dislike it, but it did feel out of character. I felt like Tamlin in book one wouldn't have done this, and Rysand was almost too good. Like, I was looking forward to the love triangle because I do like Rysand as a hero as well. But he leans more good than I wanted. I wish there was more banter between Farah and Rysand in the beginning. I wish we had more time seeing more of the darker side of him, I guess. Because this is Hades and Persephone retelling, and he is supposed to represent the Hades character. So I was a little bit disappointed in that, but not overly so. I still really enjoyed this story. I liked seeing Farah's story arc. I really felt for her when it comes to her mental illness and kind of being trapped in her mind and seeing her pulling herself out of that. And I liked the expansion of the world building. I liked seeing other parts of this world. I liked the little mini adventures she went on with Rysand. There was 2 little like mini quests, I guess you can say, that she went on, and I enjoyed reading those. That was fun and exciting. I enjoyed all the characters. There isn't really a character I dislike in this novel, and there is a found family element, which I always love, and I just liked how Farah fit in with this family, and it was interesting to see because she was kind of the outsider coming in, and it was nice seeing how easily she fit in and was accepted by the other people, which I think is really representative of how it could have been. I'll get more into that maybe later in the spoiler section. I enjoyed the magic. I like how Farah has magic. I love how her sisters are more involved. I do really love her sisters, and I know Nesta is terrible, but I find her character really intriguing, and I'm really excited to see where her character goes, especially after this book. I really did love the romance. My one criticism, which I feel like is going to be a constant criticism for Sarah J. Maas, is her info dumping. I don't mind being told stories in books, like, through other characters, but I wish they weren't, like, so long. I feel there's, like, 2 instances that it happens in here, and they just felt too long. And I know I have more to look forward to with her other books, so I think I just need to get used to this. I don't know if this is a common thing in fantasy. Maybe it actually is, and I just need to get over myself, but I just always notice it when I read her books, so I don't know. And yeah, I really loved this book. I did love the twist at the end, and at the end of the book, I was so excited to see where the story is going to go. I did start the next book, but I'm not that far in, so I still have a lot of excitement to get to, and I'm glad that the series is not over. I'm glad that she's continuing on in this series and that there's more books in this world. Like, I just love series, so it's so fun. And yeah, I'm gonna go into spoilers now, but I should say that I did give this a 5-star rating. I liked it more than book 1, but book 1 still has a special place in my heart. Like, I just love first books in YA series. There's something comforting about YA tropes. I don't know. Like, I always like book 1. I always like discovering the new world that the author is portraying to us, and I usually like the easement into the world. And I know in book 1 Sarah J. Maas did that by having that world established already, then you can expand. Does that make any sense? And today I'm reviewing the book A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. This is an adult fantasy. Some people call it new adult. Personally, I call it adult fantasy romance series. So I will say that since this is the 3rd book in the series, there will be spoilers for books 1 and 2, so if you do not want to be spoiled, maybe leave the video, but I have 2 other reviews. I have a review for A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I also have another review for A Court of Mist and Fury as well, so you can go check out those videos first if you prefer, but this will have spoilers for the first 2 books. There will be a spoiler-free version for this book in the first half, and the second half will have spoilers. So now let's get on to the review. Picking up from the last book, Mist and Fury, Farah is back with Tamlin in his mansion in the Spring Court, and she is there to bring his court down from the inside. A lot of things happened in book 2. It ended off where Farah and everyone in her party and her 2 sisters were captured by the king of Hybern, and she convinced everyone that she was under Ryzen's spell, and Tamlin took her back, and the plan was to bring him down from the inside, kind of espionage type of thing. We start off with her in the court, and Tamlin is believing that she was under Ryzen's spell. Lucian is there as well, and Tamlin has decided to align with Hybern, unfortunately, and people from Hybern are going to come over and start preparing for war. So this was a really good installment in the series. I did enjoy a lot of it. Did have some problems with it, but for the most part, I did really enjoy it. I was slightly disappointed. I wasn't anticipating the direction that it went, And I think I'll go more into that in the spoiler section, but I did really enjoy it. I always like Sarah J. Maas's writing. I enjoy her stories, but sometimes she disappoints me, and I'm feeling like it's a trend. Like, I've had these similar feelings with Throne of Glass. Sometimes she makes decisions and I just wish she didn't. And I feel like she's just so much better than some of the decisions that she makes, because I see the talent there, but then she does something that really bothers me. A Court of Mist and Fury was amazing. It was a 5-star read. I absolutely loved it. And going to this book, I was disappointed. But I did enjoy reading Farah's point of view yet again. I liked what I read. Like, I really enjoyed it. I loved seeing Farah really take Tamlin and his court down, and I liked seeing her being reunited with her friends. And it's hard to go into this without spoilers, but it is more of a war book. There's a war happening, and I do enjoy war stuff, but it's not the direction that I wanted for this book. I was writing out some characters, like I listed the major characters, and it's a huge cast, like almost too many. And I was getting confused sometimes. There was even more characters introduced near the end. It was a little overwhelming, but I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it 4 stars. I don't know what else to talk about except with spoilers. So I think I'm going to have to move on to that part, but I was disappointed. But 4 stars is still a really good rating. I'm excited to keep going in this series. I think the next book is actually going to be a lot better, and I'm more excited for the possibilities with that book. So I do highly recommend this series. Overall, it's kind of like a 4-star series, I guess, or between a 4 and a 5. So I definitely recommend it, especially if you like romance. Oh, the other thing I should say before I move on to spoilers is that one disappointment was the romance. This felt like a 700-page epilogue, especially since the focus is mostly on the romance. Like, there is still a lot of fantasy things happening, and I would still kind of say it's more of a fantasy first, or like world first and then romance, but it's like a heavy romance plot line, right? And in this book, it was an epilogue. Like, they were together, and that's not my favorite thing to read about. I like seeing a development, like a relationship develop, and I really enjoyed seeing Rising and Farah develop their relationship in book 2, and I was hoping for more angst in this book, and it wasn't there. Not necessarily between them, but I wanted more drama. I wanted more relationship drama, and it wasn't in here. It was mostly about the war, which is fine. That is my review for A Court of Wings and Ruin. If you've read this book before, I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about it. Do you like it? Do you not like it? I would love to know. Please comment down below. And if you're going to read the next books, let me know if you're excited, if you're not excited. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. If you've not done so, you can follow me on Goodreads and Instagram. And you know what? I want you to keep reading. Bye.